Hello and welcome to episode 190 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here as always with Michaela. And Michaela, you go back to the beginning of Drink the Movies. We started doing our spooky season films right in the month of October, doing some horror films, some, kid type films. But one of the films that got us started off was Halloween, right? Mike
Sure.
Myers, setting the stage there for slashers. We chatted about that film, had a pretty good time with it. And then I think it was the next year or maybe last year, I don't really remember. We talked about Friday the 13th, right? I guess technically no Jason Voorhees in that. That was his mom. Spoiler warning. But we got into that world too, right? The hockey mask of it all. This week we're taking a turn to maybe the slasher with the most personality of all of those.
Mm.
So you're either a Michael Myers kid, kid.
hmm
You're either a Michael Myers fan. I don't even know how to describe it. You're either in the Michael Myers camp, you are in the Jason Voorhees camp, or you're in the Freddy camp. We're
That's
talking
right.
about Nightmare on Elm Street, Michaela. Or what camp are you in?
Oh, I'm a Freddy girl. 100%. 100%. None of them are, in my opinion, he's the scariest. He's the scariest looking. He's terrifying. He's covered in weird burn scars. He's got the best backstory. It's chilling and awful. I just love him. I mean, I don't love him. I love to be afraid of him. I love to have nightmares about him.
That's
Yes.
right. Yeah, don't go to sleep out there. Yeah, for sure. Freddy will haunt your dreams for sure. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And this was quite a wild trip going back to this because there's been a lot of iterations of Freddy over the years, for sure. And we're going to talk about all that, but we're taking it back to the beginning, back to that classic from 1984. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead. We'll grab some ingredients and make a shot. Thanks a lot. And we'll be right back to whip up this week's cocktail.
So Brian, this shot comes. This is the Freddy shot, and it comes from the Sunday Fix. And I did this because there's a lot of cocktails out there. I think there's like a Never Sleep Again that we looked at, but I picked this one
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's very reminiscent of Freddy. It's got the green and red kind of stripeness going. It's really cool, but also as an olive branch because as we all know at Drink the Movies, shots are about the least favorite thing of Brian. Only
True.
only only met with coconut, which we did for his
Yes.
favorite movie, one of his favorite films of all time. It was a coconut shot for Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So go check that out, that episode out. It's really good. And the drink is
Hmm.
actually pretty good for a shot. But this one I felt it was only fair that we pick something from a movie that I love that also was a shot. It's actually really easy to make, and you made it with some of your homemade strawberry syrup that it calls for.
I did absolutely. Yeah, we had to mix up some strawberry syrup for an episode a while back. So I've had to this. I've been hanging on to it now for a little while. But to put that together, it's pretty simple. You're just going to make a simple syrup, and then after you get your sugar dissolved in there, you can go ahead and cut the heat, and then steep some strawberries in there. You're just going to want to go ahead and cut off like the green top, slice those in half, and put I don't know roughly a cup or so in there. Just let it steep. It's going to pull out a little bit of the strawberry flavor. It's going to pull out some of the sugar there, and then you can strain out the strawberry bits and bottle, keep in your fridge, and you're good to go. So that's what I used here in mine. So let's put one of these together into a shot glass. It goes. This is a really good shot. On a side note, if you want to practice your layering game, Michaela, I know sometimes we fall short on that, but these ingredients are definitely different enough viscosities that it does a lot of the work for you, but it's a good way to practice, right? So into a shot glass, go ahead and put in a half ounce of your strawberry syrup. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take like a bar spoon, kind of go ahead and like stick that down into your shot glass, just right over top of your next layer there. So right on top of the strawberry syrup, you're going to gently pour in 3/4 of an ounce of vodka. And then again, you're going to put your spoon in there right over top of the vodka, and you're going to add 1 ounce of Midori. So you've got your red on the bottom, kind of this clearish layer in the middle, and then the Midori, the green on top. In the recipe, they call for floating a little bit of 101. You can light that on fire. They actually, in the recipe, say that they didn't do that either. I didn't do it, but you could if you wanted to for the effect. Just make sure you're careful out there if you're playing with fire in your drinks. Absolutely. So you go ahead, you make this. It's a shot. You do it. I mean, it tastes fine. It tastes like all the other shots. It tastes pretty sweet, pretty
Yeah,
syrupy, and not that
yeah.
good. I question my life decisions about letting Michaela pick the cocktails for the movie, but I had it. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. And I actually think that this would translate to a long drink okay. But what did you think about this one?
So full disclosure, when I saw this, I was like, Brian's going to hate it because it's a shot. But I also thought we could
I
totally turn
appreciate you
this.
putting me first.
Yes. I did think that it would be a good idea for us to try and kind of make this into maybe not a shot, but a shooter. So a slightly larger drink that you could shoot, maybe,
Hmm.
and kind of double the amounts. Um, and so that's what I had started to do, but then it was so sweet. I think it probably needs to stay a shot. It depends on how sweet you have the strawberry syrup be. So if you're going to make it
Hmm.
like you, it's probably not so bad because you just have the residual sugar. But if you're going to do something like, I don't know, something store bought that's going to have high fructose corn syrup in it and stuff, it's probably going to be way too sweet. Um,
Right. Hmm.
I like the idea of lighting it on fire, but I also am terrified of setting myself on fire. So yeah,
That's
I don't
valid.
know,
That's valid. Yeah,
you
that's a
know.
valid concern. Yeah.
It's probably not the best drink. I really think, though, that if you're going to have like a Nightmare on Elm Street extravaganza, like you're going to have a Nightmare on Elm Street party, and we're going to talk about it because there's, I don't know, 37 versions of this movie out. This would be a really fun shot to get the party started because it looks great. I mean, it definitely looks like Freddy Krueger's sweater. I don't understand why he was wearing a Christmas sweater when they set him on fire in that boiler room, but doesn't really doesn't
Might
I don't know.
explore that in one of the 37 sequels to this. I don't know for sure. If you wanted to do this into a long drink, I think that there's probably enough fluid ounces there, right? You're 2 1/4 here in this shot, so it's basically already a shooter at that point anyway. I would add a healthy squeeze of lime juice, I think, to it. It's going to cut through that sweetness a
Ooh.
little bit if you wanted to do it as a long drink, or if you want to do a party. I think this is a good idea, Michaela. Stick with me. Go ahead and mix up a couple of these shots, right? You can have them there like on display. They're going to look like little Freddy Krueger shots there. That's going to be pretty good, pretty good. And then you take that shot. You grab a glass of ice and you pour the shot into the glass of ice and you top the rest of it up with some soda water. Or you could do like a Sprite or a Starry or something like that to make it into like a soda, right? Like a strawberry,
Ooh.
melon, kind of soda kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. I think that that would be pretty good. That'd be pretty good. And then you don't have to do the shot, and everyone is a winner there in my eyes for sure.
Everyone is
So,
happy,
so
especially Brian.
especially me, especially me. So go ahead and take a look at the picture of it. The picture of it's really cool. It looks really neat, and I'll post the link to the Sunday Fix there where we got this recipe from. And check that out. Let us know what you think, or if you have any other good Freddy Krueger adjacent cocktails, send those our way, and we'd appreciate that. But for now, Michaela, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and mix up some more strawberry syrup. We need to grab a bottle of Midori. We need to make sure we don't fall asleep, and we're gonna be right back to chat about this week's film, Nightmare on Elm Street.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them. From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Spoiler warning for A Nightmare on Elm Street. If you've not yet seen this film, I don't believe you. You've seen at least a version of it. Because again, there's like 18 different
Wow.
Nightmare on Elm Streets. But if you haven't seen it, you should be warned. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about all of the things. We're gonna talk about everyone that dies and the backstory of Freddy and all of those. So if you want to experience those in a way, in its first, pressing, go watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's on Max right now as of this recording. You can enjoy it and you can make yourself a Freddy shot and you can come back and we can chat about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've had plenty of time to see it. 1984, if my math serves me correctly. That means that Freddy Krueger is 40 years old. So happy birthday to you, Freddy, out there. It was directed by Wes Craven and it stars Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson and Robert Englund as Fred Krueger, the villain of our dreams there. So, Michaela, this was a pretty big deal when it came out, right? It came out. It was on like the following the footsteps of those slashers I mentioned at the top, right? So of Jason, of Michael Myers and things. And this was kind of a new take on that, coming, from the imagination of Wes Craven, who wasn't like a he wasn't a stranger to doing scary stories by this point, but this was definitely the one that kind of, lit the world on fire and, created this whole universe of, Wes Craven's, horror genre here in A Nightmare on Elm Street. And let's get it started. And I really love the way that it starts, as I just recently watched Scream. See to see the parallels that Wes Craven put into those, right? And on kind of a not like a mockumentary style, but definitely kind of like this um tongue-in-cheek homage to it. It starts here in this one with Tina, right? And you think kind of right off the bat that Tina's going to be our main character of the story. We're following her kind of through this nightmare as we get this party started, and we think that she's going to be the one that we're along for in the ride, but it turns out she is not. She is running from this disfigured gentleman. She is scared half to death. She wakes up in a sweaty panic, and the next day at school, she's going to go and chat with her friends about it.
Yeah. The opening scene is terrifying because it's dark. You don't really know what's going on. You see this dude in a hat. His arms are really long. Like all of these things happen. And one of the things that I really love about the world that Freddy creates is because it's a dream. So many weird things happen, and you don't question it, right? So like there's the moment where his arms just get really long, and you're like, that would only happen in a dream, right? But it's real. And the girl who plays Tina, Amanda Weiss, so she is like this really like beautiful, like idealistic child of the teenager of the 80s, right? She's got she looks, she's got great like blonde hair, and she's got this boyfriend, and she's talking to her best friend Nancy about this dream that she had. And even when she wakes up, her mom is like, what is going on with you? Like, you need to quit dreaming these crazy dreams, because she's got this weird like cut in her nightgown, but she looks super innocent and sweet, right? Like she's just got this kind of, I don't know, innocence about her that I always found really compelling at the beginning of this, because you're right, you think she's going to be like this main character, but really it's Nancy, her friend, that kind of becomes the center of this thing, because Nancy confesses to Tina that she's also been having these weird dreams. And they kind of commiserate about this back at Tina's house because her mom's gone for the night, and that means everybody's having a sleepover.
That's right. Yeah, everyone's having a sleepover. That means that the boyfriends are coming over. I like you get kind of that introduction to everyone there at school where Nancy is saying that she had a dream of this creepy guy. Sounds kind of the same. You also have Glenn, who's played by a very young Johnny Depp there, who is Nancy's boyfriend, says, "Yeah, I've been having those same kind of dreams." Then we meet this knucklehead by the name of Rod. He seems kind of like a screwball, right? Every group has one, of course, and Rod is the one here, and he is dating Tina that were introduced there at the beginning of the film. So yeah, as you mentioned, Michaela, they're going, they have the house to themselves. So of course, everyone's going to come over for the party. Of course, that means Rod is going to come over for a party, and Rod and Tina are going to spend some time up in Tina's bedroom before Tina and Rod fall asleep, and Tina is going to go back into her nightmare. And then we're going to be introduced to Freddy a little bit more, right? So we get to see him there. We get to see how he's interacting kind of in this dream world. I really like it's a lot of like smoke and fog and shadows on Freddy. And every time like Freddy comes up, he's not really like so quippy, I guess, in this first one, but he'll just kind of have like this look and laugh about him, and he'll do something like weird, like he'll like cut himself open, and you'll see like some like weird like pus like spilling out of him,
Yeah.
or something like crazy like that. But then you get into like just like the mind-boggling stuff about all this, because this movie was made for $1.8 million. Now, obviously, you're not spending any money on the cast here. These are all pretty young people, pretty like unknown people. So they're spending all of it on like fake blood and the sets, because the very first like kill of this thing, right, of Tina here, Rod wakes up and he sees her, and Tina's like scrambling up the wall, and they've built this whole like big rig to basically like spin the room like upside down
Yeah.
so Tina can like slide up the wall. Like it's unbelievable that this like low budget like schlock fest has like these crazy special effects within them. But the kills then become very iconic here of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. No, I mean, the first time you see this, right, you're shocked, because first of all, you see her like get sliced, right? Now the thing about Freddy, if you don't know, spoiler warning, he's got knives for fingers on one of his hands, and that's one of the things that you see in the opening scenes is him making like the actual
Yeah.
like glove, and that's pretty terrifying. I don't know about you, but if a guy has knives for fingers, I don't want him near me. This was way before Edward Scissorhands. It is not cool. It's scary as heck. I don't like it. But when Tina is attacked, like you see these like totally unforced, like invisible knives like mark her. I have no idea how they did that. And then the blood rushes out and it's so realistic. That one like millisecond haunted me from like the first time I saw this film because it looks so real. And then, as you say, she's climbing up the walls and on the ceiling, and blood is just everywhere. And poor Rod, he's like, I don't know how to help her. I don't know what to do. He can't reach her. She's on the ceiling. It's a hot mess, and she ends up like being wrapped up in the sheets, just completely covered in blood. And he freaks out and leaves through a window, right? So of course, when Nancy and Glenn wake up and the police are called, they automatically assume that Rod has just murdered her somehow with these, like, I don't know, he had 5 serrated knives at the same time. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy kind of death scene opening scene there for that. And yeah, the whole like the whole rest of this friend group is left in shock, right? Especially Rod, who is there kind of witnessing this. And Rod, as I mentioned, is kind of like this bad apple knucklehead of a character. So what's Rod going to do? He's going to get arrested, of course. Nancy's dad is the police lieutenant in town. He is played by the incomparable John Saxon, who's very excellent kind of in this role as this detective, and is going to throw Rod into the slammer there because of course he did it. The boyfriend always does it. So he's going to get locked up, and then our attention is going to turn more then to Nancy, who's going to keep kind of having these recurring nightmares about this Freddy Krueger characters. We'll see a couple of times when she dozes off, maybe the most infamous. You'll see it on a lot of like newer like takes of the movie poster. I don't know if this was on the movie poster in 1984, but you get that very iconic scene of like the gloved hand coming up in the bathtub there, which is very scary. Meanwhile, Nancy's mom, she's quite the knucklehead as well. She's like, "Are you fine in there? You're totally fine. Don't even worry about it, Nancy. I don't care why you're screaming or shrieking from in there. You're totally fine." As she's nearly drowning to death. But yeah, I like all these little glimpses then that Nancy is getting, and it starts to pit Nancy and Fred Krueger against each other in this dream state.
Yeah, I really liked the recurring theme here, which was, parents are oblivious. In the 1980s, I just feel like they were oblivious, right? They were like, she's obviously not fine. She's screaming for help in the bathtub, and the mom's like, "Are you okay?" Now, Nancy's mom has a problem with alcohol, and you feel like their marriage is not working with the lieutenant and her, and so Nancy's mom is not in the best space, and maybe there's more about that we'll get to. But what I found really interesting is obviously these kids are completely traumatized, but no one seems to take them seriously when they're saying that as a team, as Glenn and Nancy, hey, something really strange is happening. The parents just don't pay any credence or attention at all to these concerns. And I think that is one of the things that I really liked most about like this dichotomy, is that this isn't just a Freddy thing. This is also continuing to happen because these parents are yet again making these decisions not to trust their kids, right?
Right.
And we see it time and time again in all the other Freddy films, right? So it's something that you'd think that they would learn, but alas, then we wouldn't have the 11 follow-ups.
We would have all the follow-ups. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you mentioned, her mom is very standoffish about believing her. Her dad is like totally like not helpful in this at all. They're vouching for Rod. Rod didn't do this. It's crazy. I'm having these crazy dreams. A police lieutenant of a dad says, "Okay, that's nice, Nancy. Let me do my job. Get along out of here." But Nancy is obviously not going to be wanting to go to sleep, right? She's having all these dreams or these nightmares that's waking her from her sleep. She's taking like a giant bottle of, I don't know, they're like stay awake pills or something. It's like the craziest label that they have on this bottle of pills ever. No nose. That's right. So she's doing that. She's trying to her best to stay awake, and her her mom does eventually, I guess, kind of cave, right? I think she's just tired of Nancy screaming in the middle of the night. She wants to get her own sleep. She takes her in to do like this sleep study. And kind of that's the point when Nancy's able to, I guess, kind of manipulate the dream realm, right? And bring something back into the real world with her. And then it kind of dawns on everyone that this is Fred Krueger. Who is that? Oh, that's the guy that all of the parents here in the story killed after he got out of prison. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So now what do you do, right? I guess Nancy is the only one here that is able to kind of control this guy, I guess, or like bait him, I guess, a little bit. And Nancy's going to have to take it upon herself to do the dirty work here because no one else seems to be very helpful in the story.
Right. No one's helpful, or they end up dead, right? Because Rod, they found him finally and they took him to jail, and Fred Krueger killed him, and they made it look like a suicide. And of course, that's the only time really when Nancy's mom is like, okay, fine. Well, you've described this dream where this guy ends up like killing him, making it look like a suicide. I'll take you to this sleep study. Now, I really liked that piece because one of the things that is still true to this day is we don't understand dreams. We don't know exactly where they come from. We don't really understand why that's so important to the human experience. There's a whole bunch of studies out there about whether animals dream and how that, sets us apart. And what could that be from, and where nightmares come from, and things like that. And I still find that to be really fascinating. The idea that if Freddy finds you in your dream and he kills you, you're dead for real, right? And when Nancy starts to kind of think about these things, she has a very good conversation, a very helpful conversation with her boyfriend Glenn over like a burger on a bridge, which I found interesting because she's trying not to sleep at all. But anyway, they're talking about when you feel the fear to manipulate things in your mind. And that's really when she starts to come up with this plan. Obviously, it doesn't work very well the first couple of times. Her poor boyfriend, Glenn, I feel really bad for him because she gives him like one assignment, and that is to like wake her up, and he falls asleep and she falls asleep and she's getting chased by Freddy. But again, I want to talk a little bit about some of these things that they do in this film. Like she's walking up the stairs and the stairs turn into like quicksand, but it looks like carpet. I don't know how they did that. It is terrifying. And it's definitely something that if you've had a nightmare where you're trying to get somewhere and you can't seem to move very fast, it definitely still gives that feeling even 40 years later. When like certain things were happening and like things stretch, or she's on the phone and like the phone becomes a tongue and it like starts to like the way in which those special effects are done, given this is 40 years old, is pretty crazy and still really icky and terrifying. Like it still hits. It's hitting on all of the levels.
Yeah, it's so well conceived, the way that this got put together and on, a very shoestring budget, and that makes all that stuff even more impressive. Glenn, when, Glenn falls asleep there, he's not able to wake up Nancy. His death, he gets, kind of like pulled down into the bed, and then there's, I don't know, about 500 gallons of blood that just come like rushing out of the bed, which I think they had to shoot upside down to get the blood to pour out of it. According to Wes Craven in an interview, I think he did in like 2016 or something like that. He said he had to cut out like 12 frames of the blood to maintain the R rating on it, which I think is kind of funny. They must be like counting the droplets of blood there, I guess, the ratings board. So stuff like that. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. But Nancy kind of knows now that she's able to stand up to Freddy. So that gives her a bit of an idea. So she's going to basically kind of set this up Home Alone style, right? She's going to go around and booby trap her house, right? She like lays out the plan to catch the bad guys. She puts a bunch of, things out there, little traps for Freddy Krueger to come on. And she goes over and yells at her dad. She's like, "Dad, you're right across the street. Could you just come over here in 20 minutes and arrest this guy when I get him back here?" And her dad's like, sure. Don't bother me now, as Nancy's doing all the heavy lifting for it here. And she goes back into the dream world, which is, the scariest part of Freddy Krueger, really. Jason Voorhees, don't go to a weird abandoned camp in the middle of the woods, right? Don't do that.
Right.
Michael Myers, stay at home. Lock your door. Don't go out. Don't muck about. Just stay home.
Just stay home.
But you have to go to sleep, Michaela. Everyone has to go to sleep. There's only one way to do it, and that's to stand up to Fred Krueger. That's what Nancy does.
Yeah. And I love this, right? She has that talk with her dad and she's like, all right, I have 20 minutes and she creates this Home Alone, like Home Alone of horrors, right?
It's like a montage. I love it.
Yeah, where she does all these booby traps and she sets up these things and then she sets her alarm. She lets her mom think that she's going to sleep. Her mom at this point has told her all about what they've done to Fred Krueger and how, he's a child killer, which makes it even scarier, right? Because
Hmm.
not only is this guy deranged, but he also is capable of like being a mass murderer, and God knows what he did to the kids with his weird hand. I mean, so, it makes him a lot more formidable as well, just with the whole backstory. At least that's how I felt. But she goes through this montage with Freddy. This scene where she goes back to find him, she goes back into his world to find him, is one of the most suspenseful, like 5 minutes, because she's just looking for him for it seems like a really long time. She's in
Hmm.
his boiler room. You see all this steam. You can't really see anything. It's like makes all these weird, like dripping noises. And she can't find him. She can't find him. And then when she does, it's this race. And I love when she grabs him and the alarm goes off. It's perfect. And then for a second, she really thinks that she's lost her mind and he's not there,
Hmm.
and that it was really all in her head. But then he's there and the chase is on. And I love it because he falls for all of the things that she's like taking him through this kind of jungle gym that she's created.
Yeah, that's right. A jungle gym of doom if you're Freddy Krueger for sure. And Freddy finds
Right.
himself locked in the basement, sat on fire, right? Which is how he lost his life in the first place. It's very coming very full circle there for Fred Krueger. There is a policeman dad finally decides to come over and check things out, and they find him there. And you think that all is well that ends well, right? At that point, kind of. You think Fred Krueger has been dispatched. You can go back to sleep now, have a good night's sleep, but not don't rest on your laurels too much because as mom steps outside to kind of look onto things, you see her get grabbed and pulled into the house there through that very small window. I don't really know how they did that. You have to look into that at that for sure, and that's kind of where it like cuts, and you think that's going to be kind of where it ends. But then you get almost like a dream sequence, kind of, which is one of the kind of neat things here about the movie, right? Is all the kids are there and they get into the car, so you don't know like is this a dream now? Was all that stuff before a dream? I don't know. Is everything fine now? You get rid of Freddy, everyone gets to just come back, easy peasy. Is that what all this is? Maybe this has all just been in our minds, playing in Nancy's psyche over this because she hasn't been sleeping well. It's hard to say, but they get in the car to drive off, and then the car takes on kind of that green and red striped visage there, and we get to see the little creepy kids jump roping to Freddy Krueger's lullaby.
No, it's the best because you think it's okay, right? When she kind of turns her back on Freddy as he's like coming through the bed, and she's like, I give back, I take back all my energy. I'm not giving you any of this. You're just gonna have to disappear. And he does. And you think for a second it's gonna be fine. You think it's gonna be okay. And then it's not. But you don't know. What I love about this one is you don't know what happens. You don't know if she died. You don't know if this is a dream that she's having. And that's a little bit different than all the other Freddy Kruegers, because in all the other ones, there's kind of a more definitive ending as to what's happened and who's still alive or dead. I really really love the homage at the end where they have the Freddy song and you've got the little girls playing,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, the jump rope. Yeah.
jump rope. Sorry, I'm like, what is the word? They're jump roping and they're like tag teaming on it, and it's just very haunting and scary. And what you find out later is that this is a really good foundation for a very long franchise that still is going on to this day.
It still is going on. It will always go on. Some people have strong opinions on that, and we can talk about kind of our own opinions on that. But yeah, this film was crazy. It's not like a benchmark like New Line Cinema, who was the the studio that produced this film. They basically refer to themselves as the studio that Freddy built, right? Because it came
Yep.
out and it just like did gangbusters. I mentioned it a couple of times. The budget was like 1.2 million dollars or something like that. It made 57 million dollars worldwide, and that was just the box office. I mean, it probably made, I don't know, 10 times that much on home video sales for sure over the course of its life. So, of course, when you do that, you're going to get the sequels come out. So, of course, so this Nightmare on Elm Street releases November the 9th, 1984, and was followed by Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge in 85. Three, Dream Warriors in 87, four, Dream Master in 88, five, Dream Child in 1989, and Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare in 1991. That was kind of where everyone thought that it was going to end.
Yep.
But Wes Craven had different ideas. I think even he said Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare was going to be the last one, but he couldn't stay away for too long. Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 1994. And then we have Freddy versus Jason, which everyone wanted to see, of course, in 2003. And then there was a reimagining of Nightmare on Elm Street in 2010, along with an anthology series in 1988 on television, kind of like a yeah, kind of akin to the Twilight Zone, right? Except
Yeah.
these were Freddy's Nightmares. So I had that come out in 1988. Now, a big part of why this was so successful is, of course, you have Robert Englund's Fred Krueger in this, right? As mentioned at the top, Fred Krueger is really the only one of these, well, at least the only one of these of like the big three that have any sort of like personality to them, right? Fred Krueger is quite the character and really, pulls all the strings, so to speak, quite literally, through all of these films. And seeing anyone else be Fred Krueger is pretty tough to get your head around, I think, which is why there's been such kind of pullback on redoing these, remaking these. Who could be Fred Krueger other than Robert Englund? And the answer is no one, really, to be honest.
Well, yeah, except they tried, right? With the reimagining of A Nightmare on Elm Street in 2010. Um, that role, who played that role? It was the same guy who did Rorschach from
Hmm. Yeah, from The
sorry.
Watchmen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and look, no slide on him because I think it's really hard to do. But I mean, Robin England's just a staple as Freddy. He's and he understood the backstory. What I really loved about the and I don't know if you watched all of them, but what I really loved about the first six, at least, was that
Yeah.
it just got deeper. Like your knowledge of how evil and how horrible Freddy was just
Hmm.
got more and more expanded. It wasn't like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers where they just get up again and they just continue to kill. Like they
Right.
tried to do that with Michael Myers. They tried to continue to build this story and make it more scary. To me, it just didn't work. But with Freddy, it was like every dream was a new way to be
Hmm.
terrified. And there were so many possibilities because literally anything's possible when you're dreaming it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
they tried to kill him so many times, but it was all in a dream. So was it ever really real?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point because, if you're Michael Myers or if you're Jason, like there's only so many ways you can stab someone, right? But if you're killing someone in the realms of your dream, it's literally like limitless as to whatever whatever we can dream up is a crazy thing that can happen to someone. It can happen in your dreams. So I think that's part of the big reason it gets legs. And again, I think that Fred Krueger being kind of the key focal point to this because it's really hard to recapture that because Fred Krueger is humorous at times. He's very scary and menacing at times, and it has to be like a perfect balance of that, right? It can't really skew like too far one way or the other. It kind of loses the plot a little bit here in terms of this scary story. But I don't know, Michaela, this was a really fun one to go back to. I hadn't watched it in quite a while, to be honest. We actually watched it together out in California. There, we were having a little spooky movie marathon as we'd wind down from our wine tastings for the day and settle into a movie. So we got to watch this together. And like I said, it had been several years since I've seen this, but Nightmare on Elm Street's always been my favorite of those movies because I'm not that big into like horror films, into like slasher films, but kind of the personality of Freddy Krueger and just kind of that more, I don't know, like psychological bit of the dream state is far more interesting to me than Jason or Michael Myers from that sense. So this is a really fun one to go back to.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think Gosh, I'm inspired to watch all of them again because I watched all of them. And I remember, again, shout out to my dad making great choices as a film kid. When it came out in 1991, who was there watching it in the theater? Me, this girl right here with the 3D glasses, because there was a whole 3D piece where
Mm-hmm.
the girl, well, it's Samantha, I think is her name. She finally meets him in a different kind of dream world that's all 3D'd out, and it was very cool. It's, I don't know, definitely my favorite. This is my favorite of all the slasher series. For that reason, the psychological piece to me is much scarier than the actual violence portion, right? Which I think is one of the reasons why this idea continues to be kind of reopened, or something similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even like Terrifier, which is now this new slasher, right? It's not enough that he's just terrifying and he like kills you with crazy things and it's super gory. There has to be a reason behind it. There has to be a reason behind the villain. We have to understand more about it. It makes it more terrifying. And yeah, those are my final thoughts. I think it's I really liked this film. Thanks for putting up with drinking a shot for it,
Yeah,
Brian.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So go check it out. If you're listening to this, this is releasing on Halloween Day, but you can get this one in. It's only about 90 minutes. It feels like there's a lot of movie in those 90 minutes, but it doesn't ever feel rushed. It's really good. Check it out for sure. So let us know at home if you are checking out Nightmare on Elm Street, what your favorites, one of the 90 iterations of Nightmare on Elm Street are, or if you have a really good cocktail to go along with it, or if you tried the Freddy shots, like we did. Let us know all that stuff. Send us pictures of your cocktails, all that stuff. Let us know what you're trick-or-treating as this year, what you're dressing up as. Let us know all that stuff. You can do it on our social medias. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of our cocktails, episode recaps, the link to the merchandise shop, Drink the video games, all that stuff is on our website. It's www.drinkthemovies.com. We appreciate everyone who's checking that out, and we appreciate our patrons over on Patreon. The most, we just had a really fun hangout with everyone yesterday. That was a really good time. You can check information out about that. It's patreon.com/drink the movies. So, Michaela, we finally made it through our horror month. It was 5 this year, so I'm extra scared. I'm extra scared for an extra week. So, but we're back to some regular movies next week, including one that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very much looking forward to talking about it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit next week. So people are going to want to make sure that they're subscribed to the podcast. Where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. We love what we do, and we don't get to do it without our amazing fans. So if you're liking what you're hearing, there is a subscribe button. There's also a review button. You can leave us a 5-star review. Share us on all the social medias. That really helps us get all the Drink the Movies love out there. Yeah, we this is the best job ever. We can't do it without your support. So we're super appreciative of it. And putting up with 5 scary movies this month has been a lot. So I'm excited about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a safe and happy Halloween. Don't eat too much candy, and don't go to sleep because Freddy might be there in your dreams. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next time on
Drink
Drink
the
the
Movies.
Movies.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. Honestly, it's so scary.
It's so scary. It starts scary. It ends scary. It's just scary. Don't go to
The whole
sleep.
thing, terrifying.